Dear students, hello. Hello from the waning light of a frozen Catskill Mountain landscape where I live. The sun is going down. The only thing in a freezing, many degrees sub-zero temperature that makes being outside a warm house bearable, the sun is going down through the trees. And that's the light that you see on my naked forehead. Very nice it is too. So I'm here to start the ball rolling towards our 18th century class by looking a little at what the 18th century is, why we're studying it at all. Why does this course exist? Why are you being called to participate in it? Well, if we didn't have an 18th century class, there would be a hole in history as we passed from the age of Shakespeare to the great age of the novel, the expansionist era of the 19th century. Where would the 18th have been? It would have gone by with no notice, as if nothing of importance happened. And things of importance, different shades of importance, happen all the time, everywhere. So we isolate our next stage as we move through the history of Europe. Of course, we don't, because this is an American college, and you do things completely at random, chronologically, topographically, geographically. The English course at my University of Cambridge, we went steadily, we went on a horrible steady plod through from Beowulf to T.S. Eliot, century by century, more or less. I can't recommend that, but it gave you an idea of history as a feature in this whole event that we call culture, and how much each age passed on to the next, things that were for them a vision of perfection and also a vision of a way of creating culture that they didn't want to continue with. So the 18th century is in fact an amazing watershed that we need to look at to understand who we are and how we got here. I used to teach at a college in Britain where there was a foundation course instead of a core, a foundation course that everybody coming to the university, every student studied, which was the 18th century. 18th century philosophy in particular, whether you were interested in philosophy or not as a student, and whether as a member of the faculty you had the foggiest idea of philosophy and how to teach it. But it was very good for us all to attend to the 18th century as a watershed. In many ways, every age proves on inspection to be a watershed of some kind. The 18th century offers itself as the shift from the primacy of the Bible, of faith, a very patchy primacy. Faith was never uniform, homogeneous, or unitary in any way, to the age of rationality, which also, the age of reason, as the 18th century is called, also is punctuated, penetrated, has Swiss cheese-like holes in its commitment to science and rationality, holes of belief in magic, in God, in all the things that are apparently being rejected by the 18th century, as it replaces the Bible with the dictionary, which is going to be henceforth the human equivalent of the Bible. That was the project. We can do without God, but we can't do without information. And information leads to knowledge, and knowledge leads to wisdom. That was the idea, that wisdom was not got necessarily on the road to sanctity, but on the road to the microscope, and all the means by which science was going to transform our life. And it has. Whether this is for the better is a complex argument. We do have wonderful things in the realm of medicine, above all. We have wonderful weapons, if you can think of them as wonderful. We owe science much. At the same time, many people, and not only the right-wing supporters of ex-President Trump, find it necessary to locate irrational sources of wisdom. I applaud that. I love the irrational. So my intention is not to take you on a plod through the excesses of rationality. We're not actually going to look at 18th century philosophy, which I used to teach, at all. I love irrationality because I love the art of fiction. And fiction, I've committed my life to it. I've written 12 novels and a great many plays. And we fictioneers, need irrationality because we need to question everything that proposes itself as a solution to the problems of existence. We need to raise those questions up as our Bible, not to attempt to be a dictionary of solutions. So that will affect what I do in the way of giving you reading, as there could be an infinity of syllabi that could be presented to you as a sufficient way of covering the 18th century. Mine will be full of the dark corners of the 18th century, which, because it was an age of light, it was an age of reason, it was an age of hope, it was an age in which the very concept of progress really was born. I don't think that, on the whole, in the 17th century, they thought that progress, human progress, the evolution of a better way of living, was a natural product of time, a time and intelligence and commitment to the idea of progress. I'm not sure that anybody believed that. We still have some philosophers who reject the whole idea of progress and say that actually we go round and round. We stumble into the same holes again and again, even though we think we're moving forwards. Actually, we're walking like those people who get lost in a forest. We're walking in circles without knowing it, like the Blair Witch Project movie. We're walking in circles, although we think we're going forwards. There are such philosophers. And it's possible for us to look back with some skepticism at the rise of science and the worship of science, with which our own culture is still full. So what shall we do, then, to look at the 18th century? Where shall we look to make it interesting? I'm gazing over my own shoulder at what I've written on my computer in the way of advice to myself, thinking about the relative homogeneity, actually, of the preceding century. As we look back at Shakespeare and his contemporaries, and we look back at the emergence of city comedy in the theatre, which in some ways leads directly to modern soap opera. And we have supremely the diary coming along with that and initiating, reinscribing the concept of individuality and the importance of the individual life, of individual trivia in the diary of Pepys, and then Samuel Pepys and other diarists, and in a way the extrusion, the extruding of privacy, of private acts in Pepys's diary. His various sexual acts have a little coded symbol, so we know when he was doing it with the maid exactly what kind of a conjunction it was. And this is the start of something which absolutely rules the present day, in which, certainly in America, the need to know exactly what is done by individuals in their privacy is absolute, and rules the culture, the popular culture anyway. And this is where it starts with Pepys in the 17th century. So looking back, we look back at a homogeneity, but every age is a heterogeneity. Every age is crammed with contradictory elements, and it would be very foolish to think otherwise. So we're going to look at some of the eccentric elements in this age, which is an age in our minds which we see as an age of men wearing extraordinary long wigs, to the point where they all look the same. actually they are aiming to look the same. All the men are trying to look the same, which is a very interesting thing and does not apply to any other age to quite the same extent, although every age is fashion ridden, and you can see the eccentrics who refuse to obey, but pretty much everybody obeys. There is a portrait of Alexander Pope without his wig. Oh, Lord. As extraordinary, as shocking in the world of the 18th century as if we were seeing him naked. But this is very rare, and the great portrait painter Sir Godfrey Kneller painted successfully portraits of his sitters, which they thought, oh, that's wonderful, that's me, and it actually could be anybody. And they found an unknown, hitherto unknown portrait of Kneller's in an attic not so very long ago, and of course they couldn't figure out who the sitter was because he could have been anybody. Any landed wealthy person, any well-to-do person. The servants, of course, looked all very different from each other because they were not high enough up the social scale to have engendered the ambition to look like everybody else. So to some extent that's true in every age, but peculiarly so in the 18th century. We think of it as all those people looking exactly the same. Now, there were many extraordinary things happened in the 18th century without even going into the world of science. In the world of the arts that most concerns me, the novel is born or reborn because this kind of extended storytelling has existed as long as human beings have. Reborn or born, or simply born if you feel that Sterne is the father of the novel, as Laurence Sterne as he is in many ways, and Fielding and Defoe and many other writers at the dawn of this new form which becomes the jewel of the 19th century, but already is anticipated in extraordinary works. We'll have a look at the work of Diderot, the man most responsible for the encyclopedia. Not only was he an encyclopedist, a scientist, a man carrying on his shoulders, like Atlas, the concept of progress. He, at the same time, was writing works of fiction which absolutely contradicted the idea of coherence, consistency, progress, or meaning, even. And we will look at his wonderful novel. I think we're going to look at it. Let's look at my own syllabus. Jacques le Fataliste, Jack the Fatalist, an absurdist novel which has still never been surpassed. But Beckett gets so close to it in Waiting for Godot that there are times when you can consider Waiting for Godot and Jack the Fatalist and wonder why Beckett bothered to write his work, because Diderot had already done it. But what a man! Diderot, the ultimate contradictory human being. He was a romantic, a nihilist, a surrealist, a post-realist, certainly a postmodernist before his time, avant la lettre. At the same time, he was the supreme standard bearer for science, coherence, and progress. For that, as the emblem of the 18th century, you cannot find better. And I shall come back to this. Perhaps I ought to give you, you're always concerned, quite understandably, with the syllabus. And I'm always trying to keep the syllabus as something that I invent as I go along, trying to be inspired by the idea of what you are doing. You are hunting through the dark, through the novelty of the 18th century, lit only by these candles that I put in your path. And I like them to be in surprising and interesting places. So maybe I will make break all my rules and make another little video called Our Syllabus. For those of you who privilege the idea of a syllabus, I know you get questioned, did he give you a syllabus? Is one of the questions that you get asked to say of your professor. I have found in the past that exactly half of my class say yes and half say no when I, as I have for many, many years, do not give out a syllabus. And I'm not sure whether they can't remember and give me the benefit of the doubt, or whether they're anxious to save me from the department's disapproval for not giving you a syllabus. However, I would rather you were comfortable and happy. So I am going to give you a syllabus which will explain more than this last quick 15 minutes. How can you pour an ocean into a pint pot to explain the 18th century in 15 minutes? But our syllabus may explain better what the take is that I intend for you in our seminar on the 18th century. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to meet you. And those of you who I already know, I'm excited to meet you again. And I'm going to give you another little 15 minutes on our syllabus, which will expand, reach out its arms, its hands into the darkness to explain how we are groping our way through this extremely complex and contradictory age. Stay warm somehow, please. Stay safe. Stay masked. Stay distanced. Stay alive. We'll speak soon. Bye.